Hello everyone, today I will be reviewing All Quiet on the Western Front. So All Quiet on the Western Front is a war film and it came out in 1930, and this film is based on the novel of the same name by Erich Maria Remarque, which came out in 1929. This film is set during World War One and is actually shown from the German point of view. So at the start of this film we see this professor telling these school kids about how the best thing to do is to enlist in the war and do your bit for your country, and all these kids they seem to really be sucked up into it, and they all jump up and say, yes, let's do this, let's go out and join the war. And then throughout the rest of the film we really see these group of once school kids go out and venture into the war in the trenches and on the Western Front to find out what it is really like to be fighting in the war. I'll start off by saying that this film is not afraid in holding back in showing the true horrors of war, and it really is quite incredible to think this film came out in 1930. So at the point I'm recording this video, the film is 90 years old, and we also have to bear in mind 1930 was only a few years into the sound era. Remember, a few years before this they were still making silent films, so the filming technique of using sound was still very new at the time. What is also incredible is that this film only came out 12 years after the end of World War One. Obviously World War One finished in 1918 and this film came out in 1930, so it was a time when World War One was still fresh in a lot of people's minds, and obviously when they went into making this film they had to bear that in mind, and they really went all out and showing what war is like. And when I'm watching this film I almost feel like it's a documentary. It really seems so realistic. It is quite incredible, but what is also really impressive about it is the way it is shot. It looks like a very modern film, although it's obviously in black and white and it has the old 4:3 aspect ratio, so it's a very square aspect ratio on the screen. Apart from that, it does look very modern, and I think what helps make the film look very modern is the way it is shot. So through its use of camera shots, through the way that the camera moves, it's all very modern. And during this time, it was when you see a lot of films from this era, you will notice that a lot of the camera shots, they tend to keep the camera quite still, because obviously in those days the cameras, they were very big, so they were hard to move around. But this film really does make use of some excellent camera work, including pans and zoom-ins and some tracking shots as well where they actually move it. It's all very impressive given the time that this film came out. I also have to say, in the battle scenes, in the combat scenes, it does look very realistic. It doesn't look fake to me at all. It really looks, well, very realistic, and you almost really believe it is happening in this film when you see these characters who are injured or killed on screen in this combat in World War One. It really is quite haunting, really, and it's a very raw depiction of World War One. If you've ever seen any war films before, probably most war films could be seen as anti-war films, in that they're trying to show that war is a bad thing. There are some films which could possibly be seen as pro-war, but really this film in particular is definitely an anti-war film. It's really not afraid to show the message, saying that war is bad. And I have to admit, sometimes the message does seem it's being rammed down our throats just a little bit when you compare it with other films. Some other films are a little bit more subtle in their approach. This film is very obvious about what it's trying to say, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that perhaps it just pushes that message a little bit too much for my liking. In some places it's really obvious what they're trying to do. And it's this famous speech when one of the characters is talking about it, and it's very obvious that what they're trying to say with this film is that war is bad, which obviously I agree, because obviously lots of people were killed in World War One, and it really is horrible seeing this happen on screen, and knowing that this was obviously a real life event, but at the same time it could be toned down a little bit. What is really amazing in this film is the way that these characters are shown, because we really do get to know these characters quite well, particularly the main character Paul, who is really the main focus of this film. He is an excellent character, and we really follow his journey throughout the film and his experience in this war. And the film actually takes place over a few years during the start of the war, then it sort of goes full circle back round again near towards the end of the film, and we meet all sorts of different characters. Obviously some of them don't survive. I don't think I'm spoiling that for you, since this is a war film. Obviously you know going into a war film that people are going to die, because that's what war is about. But this film really lets us connect with some of the characters individually, and each character has something slightly different to say about what is going on in this war. Each character reacts different to the war. Some of them put up with it very well. A lot of them find out that going into this war they thought it would be exciting and a challenge, and it would be time off from school, but then they later find out that it's a lot more difficult than they thought it would be, and they just want to go back home. Now this was actually the second time that I had seen this film. The first time I'd seen it was many years back, and going into watching it, after having watched it, I was surprised by how much I remembered from it, given the fact that I'd only seen it once before. There were so many scenes I thought, yes, I know this bit is coming up. Oh yes, this is the scene where that happens. But I am very glad that I did watch it again, because it is a fantastic film, and in my opinion probably one of the greatest war films of all time, which is a very big compliment given that the film came out 90 years ago, and there are surely lots of other war films that have been inspired by this. This is definitely one of the greatest World War I films of all time, which again is a big compliment, since there have been lots of great World War I films as well. So I have to say, All Quiet on the Western Front is a fantastic war film, and I really don't think that it has dated very much, considering it came out 90 years ago. Perhaps some of the audio doesn't sound quite as good quality as in later films, but that's to be expected. But really, this is still a very watchable film nowadays, and an excellent war film. So if you like war films, you definitely need to check this out. This is definitely a film that needs to be watched, and it's absolutely fantastic. Now, this film did have a few different versions where bits were cut out. So the version I have, which is the Universal Blu-ray behind me, is 2 hours 13 minutes long, which is, I think, an excellent runtime. I think the original was longer. I don't know exactly why certain bits were cut out, but really, from the version I watched, it's an excellent film and doesn't necessarily need any more added to it. So I'm going to give All Quiet on the Western Front a rating of 9 out of 10. I think it is well worth checking out. So if you get the time, please watch All Quiet on the Western Front. So there we go. So that is my review of All Quiet on the Western Front. So what do you guys think? Have you seen it? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Please let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.